This is Rudy Giuliani, and this is America's Mayor Live from right below the airplanes going into West Palm Beach and avoiding Mar-a-Lago. You'll be hearing them tonight because the president is probably having dinner right now, or the soon-to-be. I mean, he really is the president, right? The other guy doesn't even appear anymore. And look, he saved us from this ridiculous bill. I mean, the press is so damn biased. Even the Wall Street Journal article, you gotta work on it really hard to figure out that bill that they wanted to pass raises their salaries. That alone is a good reason to vote against it. Another good reason is over 1,500 pages with the data read it. So that's telling me as a congressman, I don't mean anything. Only Pelosi started that shit. In fact, do we have the Pelosi video? I think it was number 1 on the other list. We have the Pelosi video where the poor thing that hurt herself the other day. Hope she wasn't drinking too much. They say she was wearing very high stilettos, and that's why she fell. It could be. I mean, at times we often thought that she looked like she was drunk. But let's listen to this. This is her philosophy on how you pass legislation in a dictatorship.
You've heard about the controversies within the bill, the process about the bill, one of the items, but I don't know if you have heard that it is a legislation for the future. Not just about health care for America, but about a healthier America.
I remember.
Where preventive care is not something
bills,
that you have to pay a deductible for or out of pocket. That prevention. It's about diet, not diabetes. It's going to be very, very exciting. But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it away from the fog of the controversy.
Good philosophy, huh? You know what that means? It means a dictatorship. Don't remember if it was Hamilton or Jefferson or Madison, but they said, here's how you can create a faux democracy. In other words, it looks like a democracy, but it's really a dictatorship. And here's how you do it. You have an uninformed electorate. They don't know what the hell they're doing. Have an uninformed legislature. They don't know what the hell they're doing. And then she's a dictator. They didn't know what was in that. She was talking about Obamacare. And remember, you'll be able to keep your doctor. More than half the people had to get rid of their doctor. You'll be able to keep your insurance. And there was a very, very excellent article yesterday that a lot of this anger at insurance companies comes about since Obamacare. The level of denials has gone up 14 times because of the unbelievable regulatory control that exists in Washington of reimbursement, claims that are denied and claims that are granted, and finally, the worst of all, treatment. Your doctor is an automaton now. Your doctor is a creature of the computer that decided what is the best treatment for your ailment. The computer, of course, doesn't know you, nor does it distinguish any of the differences between you and me. It doesn't give any deference to a doctor's intuition, which I think is stronger than anything, because I always believe that great lawyers have an intuition that makes them great lawyers, and others just don't have it. But in any event, don't read the bill. I don't know how she lasted after saying that. The woman does not belong being a legislator in a democracy. What she has just said completely negates the concept of a democracy, even the modified democracy that we have as a republic. Well, nobody knew it was in this bill. Do you want to see it? We got a picture of it. I just want you to look at this. I did put it up before, but in case you weren't watching the earlier show, and since it's relevant, look at that. The one on the left is the Democrat version, of course, and the one on the right is the new 100-page bill. The one on the right does all of the things that were supposed to be done. What they were supposed to do is provide some additional funding for emergency relief and a couple of other things. Basically, what this is a recognition of the fact that they overspent. The money has already been spent that is approved in either one of those. That's one page. Everything else is additional money they're spending beyond the debt they've put us in already. So it's like double. From the last time they did it to now, they overspent. They overspent what they predicted they were going to spend. So they got to approve it for the government to continue. And then they used that you could do in one page. Then they used that excuse. Everything else you saw in both sides, by the way, but the 100 pages is really money that has to be spent on emergency aid. The other one includes, and I bet you, I'm not sure, see if you know this, a raise for everybody in Congress. They're entitled to a raise? I mean, the mere fact that they overspent in that period and had to produce that should require a reduction in salary. The fact that they haven't done anything, would be another reason why. And if we were to take a vote of the American people and we said, do you think they should be given a 10% raise or a 10% reduction? I think it'd be 60, 40, 70, 30 reduction. Also, as I'll explain a little later, that bill is a subterfuge for continuing their censorship of Republicans. And they want us to vote for it because we're stupid and we don't read the bill. And the ones who do vote for it fit in that category. And they should be opposed in primaries because they're stupid. Or who knows what they are. There was an article in the Post today by Jacob Sullum in which he talks about some of the J6 people should be pardoned, some shouldn't be pardoned. He can understand if Trump does it, but and he should do it. And here's the sentence that he puts in, for which I was trying to get him on the show because I want to debate him. But even though Trump himself is largely to blame for the riot, which was inspired by his unfounded insistence that Joe Biden had stolen the election, he raises some valid points about prosecutorial power, which can lead to unjust results that might be remedied by the prudent use of presidential clemency. He's basically saying he shouldn't pardon all of the J6 people, but there were some that were denied a fair trial or justice. And he doesn't really give you much of a guide as to which or the other. Well, I don't know what's going on out there, but we got a dog who's making. Is the dog all right? Let's make sure the dog is all right. We're dog people. Dog's okay? Oh, he's playing around? Good. Okay. Must be a little dog. Sounds like a little dog. Yeah, sounds like. They're cute. Really so cute. So here's what I want to say to Jacob. I wish he had come on the show. I mean, I'd be cordial. I would just play this for him, Ted. I would just play for him. Now, I was there when he said this, and since I heard this, for all the, well, let's just play this, and you tell me how he inspired the riot. He inspired a riot when he said this. These are the last words he left the crowd with. See if you notice any hand signals. Like, don't pay attention. The reason you see all that glass there, you can't imagine the number of threats that he had that day, including one from John Sullivan, for which he wasn't arrested.
To demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully slated. Lawfully slated. I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Today we will see whether Republicans stand strong for integrity of our elections, but whether or not they stand strong for our country.
Now, peacefully and patriotically. I mean, we've had Democrats virtually like Schumer basically say to burn down a Supreme Court justice's house. And Maxine Waters basically trying to stir up a riot at the end of the verdict of one of those 2020 cases. Or they're stirring up riots all throughout 2020 by saying it was kind of justified for them to burn buildings down. And then getting them out of jail after they did burn the buildings down. Harris did that. Biden did that. Soros paid for it. What, was he making hand signals to say, no, I don't really mean that? This is such an unbelievable manipulation of you, the American people. It's going to turn out that January 6th, Mr. Sullivan, was a fraud. Not to say that there weren't some crimes committed by some Trump people, but not nearly the 1,000 or whatever that they ended up with. Not nearly deserving the horrendous punishments handed out by the leader of it being Beryl Howell, the chief judge of the District of Columbia, who felt at the beginning that the sentences and the pursuit of them wasn't vicious enough. I appeared before in my case, and I can tell you, she doesn't have an ounce of fairness in her with regard to anything having to do with Trump. Nor do any of the juries in D.C., which is the reason they took that case that should have been in Georgia and put it in D.C. so they could get it in front of a jury they owned and a judge they owned. And they got it. And they railroaded me. But we'll get out. We'll work our way out of it because we have the truth on our side. Today they filed some kind of motion. So I should be precluded. I should be precluded from talking about. I've even forgotten what it is I'm supposed to not talk about. They're always trying to get these. You know, people forget that in those Trump trials, a lot of the reason for it was to get gag orders to shut him up while he was president. It was outrageous. They're trying him on a frame up, and then they want to silence him, defending himself, which they want to do to me. They leak out all sorts of terrible things about you. And then when you defend yourself, they bring you before a Trump derangement judge, and they want you held in contempt for defending yourself. And the whole case you're involved in is a violation of your free speech. And then they want to violate free speech even more. Oh, I know what it is. They want me to be precluded from saying that I'm a resident of Florida and that I have a homestead in Florida. It's a matter of law. I registered. You can look at the date. Maybe I could just hold up the card. Is that speaking, Ted? I mean, instead of maybe. So then the whole purpose of that is, if they go out and say I'm not, and I say I am, look at the card, I'll be in contempt, and the Trump-hating judge will go along with them. Now, in this case, first judge, second judge, I haven't had a single ruling in my favor. The second judge, Judge Lyman, wants to have the trial during the inauguration. And my lawyers were asking, because we had a change us for more time, and he gave us a really interesting option. We could do it before the inauguration. Here they are asking for more time because they just came in the case to replace lawyers that quit on me, which happens a lot to Trump defendants, right? And the judge wants to gives us an option. You can go even further in depriving yourself of the ability to have a fair trial by having it too early with new lawyers, and you can go to the inauguration. Or you can forget that and forget the inauguration and have it 3 days later, when I would like to have it, even though I could have it the week after, or the week after that, or the week after that. But after all, it is Donald Trump's inauguration. And my God, for a judge that doesn't seem to realize that this is a lawfare case brought by Biden's former law partner, Michael Gottlieb, and the Wilkie Farr law firm funding it as part of their effort to destroy Donald Trump and the people around him. Also, Michael Gottlieb was a lawyer for Burisma, which is the crooked company that paid enormous amounts of money to Hunter Biden. And beyond the Biden case is well known in Ukraine as an organized crime crooked company, one of the most crooked in Ukraine. And Michael Gottlieb, the guy who sued me, represented the company whose criminality I exposed solely, just me, and the criminality of his pal Hunter Biden. And he claims that he's doing it for nothing because out of the goodness of his heart and how he feels about it. You think maybe it's because he's part of that whole Biden cabal? He's worked for Obama. He's very much involved in all that Democratic crap. I don't know. At least I have the right to argue that it's more plausible that he's doing it as part of the 100 or so cases that the Biden cabal has brought. They even have groups now that raise money to bring the cases. But
Well, Mayor,
when you're still in the last stages of what has been the worst era in American history for our criminal system, our legal system in general, and my goodness, the biggest restrictions on our free speech since the Alien and Sedition Acts at the beginning of the Republic. When you're in the last stages of it, sometimes the worst things happen. And we are in the last stages of it. By the way, Jacob Sullivan, his insistence that Biden stole the 2020 election was not unfounded. Are you aware of the fact, you're probably not, that 3 months ago they discovered over 300,000 ballots in Georgia are missing? I wonder why they're missing. Now, I would not be able to tell you that had I stayed at ABC, because like the Biden-inspired lawyers that want to put a gag on me, John Catsimatidis wanted to do that and have me not speak about the 2020 election, even though I have to do it to defend myself. And I think my speaking about the 2020 election and the other brave people who did it is one of the reasons they didn't cheat the way they did this time. I think we put the fear of God in them, among other things. And had we succumbed to their fascist-like pressure, it would have been very, very different. So also take a look. I'm going to play one. I'm going to play one piece here. Okay. And I think what we'll play is let's play in comparison with Trump saying peacefully and patriotically. Let's listen to these comments from Ray Epps, which I think were made the day before or the day of. I'm not absolutely certain when I tell you.
Speaking, we are going to the Capitol. It's that direction. That's where our true problems lie. President Trump is done speaking. We are going to the Capitol. That's where our problems are. Okay, folks, we need your help. As soon as President Trump stops speaking, we are going to the Capitol. The Capitol's in that direction. Let people know. Spread the word.
Once again, they didn't get that.
As soon as President...
Well,
On that one, he does mention we're going to the Capitol.
yeah. But the
I'll
one,
find the other one. I'll find the other one.
the one the day before, he says, storm the Capitol. But obviously, he did a lot more than a lot of the people that went to jail. This guy, the day before, I think at Black Lives Matter Plaza, along with John Sullivan,
Right here.
talked about crashing into the Capitol.
I'm not kidding.
We're here to storm the Capitol. Hell yeah. All right, have a good night. Be safe. Be safe, brother.
That one moment changed what we knew about Ray Epps that night, when he whispered "storm the Capitol" before it had happened, and echoed the official narrative before it was broadcast across the nation.
Of supporters of President Trump stormed the U.S. Capitol building.
Thousands storming the Capitol.
This mob that stormed the Capitol.
Stormed the Capitol.
Stormed the Capitol.
Stormed the Capitol.
Stormed the U.S. Capitol building.
Stormed the United States Capitol.
He ran it through forensic software that technical investigators use for analyzing audio and video to make sure we heard correctly and it had not been altered.
I'm not kidding.
We're here to storm the Capitol. Hell yeah. All right, have a good night. Be safe.
And searched through hours of footage, countless news stories, Epps's FBI case documents, and his deposition before the January 6 committee to see if it had been discussed. With the exception of one writer we found on Substack, it hadn't.
President is done speaking. We are going to the Capitol, where our problems are. It's that direction.
Epps, who continued to direct people to the Capitol in the cold light of day on January 6, did not go into the Capitol himself, according to the January 6 committee and the FBI. He's never explained publicly why he said storm the Capitol, what he meant by that, or what he may have known. So why hasn't it been addressed?
Nobody cared about the Ray Epps story.
That's enough. Wow.
Well, he's never been held to account for that. People have gone to jail for walking in there for 3 minutes. Elderly people have gone to jail. Hero veterans have gone to jail. People who never touched a police officer have gone to jail. People have gone to jail. Most of the convictions are misdemeanors. And they've gone to jail for it. People don't go to jail for misdemeanors usually. Gosh, in my city, the communist or the Soros prosecutor, Bragg, gives you an award if you commit a misdemeanor, particularly if you're black. But if you're white, like poor Mr. Penny, he prosecutes you for not just defending yourself, but defending everybody on the train. I mean, we live in a racist city, except it's reversed by somebody like Bragg, paid for by Soros. Now, he was never prosecuted. The FBI never recommended prosecuting him. The completely warped fascist U.S. Attorney's Office in the District of Columbia under Attorney General Garfield. I know it's Garland. Never prosecuted him. They prosecuted people for, basically what amounted to spitting on the sidewalk. Not even. Thousands of, 1,000 people, 2,000 people? Most expensive investigation in American history? For what? You compare January 6th to any one of about 50 or 60 riots earlier in the year before, and you don't see any fire. You see, and the only fire you see is smoke, and the smoke is the police, the Capitol Police, putting tear gas on the Trump supporters who panicked when it happened. They also don't explain to you, I don't know if I have that one up, I had it up the other day, that the January 6th committee was a committee of thugs and criminals who had mostly engaged in trying to frame Trump on Russian collusion. They tried to take out an lawfully elected president based on a $1 million plus paid for fraudulent story that they knew was fraudulent. I don't know how many times these people get to lie, and you prove they lie, and they get to lie again. And then you put them on a committee and you exclude anybody that might be favorable to Trump. So nobody ever gets cross-examined. That Cassidy Hutchinson gets up there and is able, look to me like Cheney prepared her and gave her something. Her eyes were like 10 times wider than anybody's eyes would be. I know she's a liar because she lied about me 3 times. Absolutely, 100% lie. And I know she lied about Trump jumping over that's absolutely ridiculous. 2 of the things she said, one in a book and one under oath, are physically impossible to do. And nobody cross-examined it because there wasn't anybody trying to point out the other side, because it was a hit job by Nancy, no original body parts on her face, Pelosi, Miss Insider Trading. Now, we're going to trust her. I mean, she spent most of her time in Congress not reading bills and giving her husband information from which they become multimillionaires. In the grand tradition of Baltimore politics, her father, Mayor D'Alessandro of Baltimore, right out of the Democrat machine of politics. And you know what that's like. It's like New York. I'm not saying she wasn't a hard-nosed politician. I'm saying she was a dishonest person. Thoroughly. Don't read the bill. Yeah, well, maybe in the Soviet Union, Nancy, but not in America. And boy, was it the 6-inch stilettos, or was it the fact that the rumors about your being a big drinker and an alcoholic are true? I don't know. You can't believe rumors. We'll be right back.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal, 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast.
These deals are...
This is Rudy Giuliani, and we are back with America's Mayor Live, and we are very, very honored to have a special guest.
That's right, Mayor. We have joining us right now, retired ATF Deputy Assistant Director and the Fast and Furious whistleblower, Mr. Peter Forcelli.
Peter?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
I can. Good to see you again, Mayor
That's
Giuliani.
good. That's very good. I always like it when the technology works. Peter, first let me show them your book. It's excellent. And of course, you're one of the people that is an expert. ATF people, most people would know, but let's tell them it's alcohol, the tobacco, and firearms, with a big emphasis on the firearms part. And you're an expert on that, and you're a possible next director.
Well, I haven't had
everything goes right.
God willing.
You don't have to say anything.
I'd be honored to serve President Trump.
My advice is don't say anything. I handled I handled the confirmation of 94 plus U.S. attorneys and about 100 marshals. And the rule was when you're up for confirmation, keep your mouth shut.
Yes, sir.
So I'd like to ask you about this whole situation with this 15, I think she was 15-year-old girl who ends up having a gun and, of course, shoots and kills 2 people, wounds 6 people in Madison, Wisconsin. Now, how do you deal with a 15-year-old having a gun? You have all the laws that prohibit it. You pass another law, I don't know how you're going to stop it.
Yeah.
So how do you evaluate that?
Well, look, this is a multi-layered onion that needs to be peeled back, and people like to blame the gun. The problem is there are so many other variables. There's the disintegration of the family. There's the loss of the church in the community. There's video games that extol violence. There's this media glamorizing violence, even music. So I mean, you can't just blame the gun. But I agree with you. Look, she should not have had access to a firearm. She's a juvenile. And look, this is the other thing. I responded to the Parkland shooting. I was in charge of the ATF office in Miami when that happened, and it was interesting because the FBI special agent in charge had asked, why don't we have a law that would prevent people from carrying firearms on school grounds? And I told them we already did. In fact, I used that law in New York City on a number of occasions with prosecutors from SDNY.
Which I used to be the U.S. attorney.
Yes, sir.
No, yes, of course. We were both, when I was U.S. attorney and mayor, we used those laws very aggressively to try to make the schools safe.
Yes.
And but you're not going to catch everybody. How many illegal guns are available now in America? Best estimate. I know it's an estimate, but it kind of gives you an idea of how you can't solve this just through laws.
No, something, Mr. Mayor, and you know this because you were the mayor when we created the trigger lock program in the Bronx. You can have a significant impact if you use the P word, the prosecution word. We use trigger lock to go after people, and we deterred folks. Gangbangers weren't carrying guns in the Bronx anymore because they were afraid of going to federal prison. They weren't afraid of Rikers Island because they just went in and came out better criminals. So we used the trigger lock program during your tenure as mayor, and it had a significant impact. So, I mean, that's part of the equation here is these soft on crime politicians, these soft on crime prosecutors that catch people with firearms and put them back out on the street only to reoffend is a huge part of the equation. And then some of these folks have no problem giving guns to juveniles. That was another thing we saw in New York because the federal system generally doesn't touch juveniles. A lot of the hardcore gangbangers would give guns to kids to hold on to them because they knew that if the kid got caught with a gun, that child wasn't probably going to go to jail. Maybe they'd go to family court. Maybe that wouldn't even happen. So, I mean, we need to get back to the basics of enforcing the law like we did back in the mid-1990s in New York City. And, you held up my book earlier. One of the things I saw that shocked me is when I got to other parts of the country, I was a special agent in charge of Miami. Like I said, great U.S. attorney's office there, I thought. But I saw in Phoenix how we had a U.S. attorney that didn't want to prosecute gun crimes. So what that allowed gun traffickers to run amok in Arizona. It's a problem I hear is still going on. So, but the prosecution word is a big part. Getting families back together is a big part of it. This was a 15-year-old girl. Obviously, she was aggrieved. My understanding is she had contact with people in California who, helped, inspire her violence further. And I think as the FBI and ATF and local police, of course, because it's their jurisdiction, as they dig further, we're going to find out a lot more as time goes on. But again, disintegration of the family is a huge, huge part of this. How did her family not know that she was glamorizing school shooters? I mean, there's an image of her that I saw online wearing the same shirt that Dylan Klebold, one of the Columbine shooters.
Yes, yeah. Well, she idolized him,
right?
And then a couple of even shooters that we wouldn't be that aware of that in Russia, and I mean, she was really an expert on not just the mass shootings we know about, but overseas.
Yeah. I mean, and somebody had to know these things. But look, there's another problem too, Mr. Mayor. And I'm going to bring it up. Is look, we've seen time and time and time again. We both worked with great FBI agents in New York City. I work with great FBI agents elsewhere. But how many times do we have to hear that someone was on the radar and is later involved in a shooting? We can go back: Fort Hood, the Parkland shooter, the Fort Lauderdale Airport shooter, Omar Mateen, the Parkland shooter, the Boston Marathon bombing. I mean, the San Bernardino shooters. Sometimes I think law enforcement needs to dig a little deeper into some of these people when a threat is determined. And I'm tired of hearing, hey, this person was on the radar after the fact. It's just, to me, disturbing. I mean, dig a little deeper.
So how would you, I know you've thought about and written about how you would approach these mass shootings. Now, 2 and 6, technically that applies as a mass shooting. So if you look at shootings of that in that category, we've had a lot of them. How would you, and particularly in schools, which are unbelievably awful, how would you deal with it?
Well, we need to make our schools harder targets, number one. And I know that's difficult to say because you don't want your children to feel like that they're in danger when they go to school. But I mean, if you're not hardening the target, then they are in some ways in danger. I'm a firm believer in putting law enforcement in schools. We saw, and again, notwithstanding Parkland, where that coward did not take action, we've seen time and time again where school resource officers have thwarted acts of violence on school property. And it's not only shootings. So, I mean, look, we need to go back to a time where law and order was respected and revered rather than demonized and threatened to be defunded. And we need to go back to the days where people were penalized for criminal activity rather than getting a slap on the wrist. Because I'm a firm believer where there is no consequence, evil people will continue to do bad things. And again, going back to your time as the mayor, when people were afraid to go to jail for even minor violations, crime dropped dramatically. And look, it breaks my heart. I left the NYPD in 2001 to be an ATF agent in New York. I stayed in New York till 2007 as an agent, still working with SDNY and NYPD. And when I think of the ground that we gained in the 90s during your tenure as mayor, and then even afterwards a little bit, and I see New York City today, it breaks my heart.
It breaks my heart too. You know, a man came up to me a few months ago and said, Mayor, they ruined everything you did. Mm-hmm. And I thought he was crying, and he was actually, crying. And it's terrible. And when you know that you can reduce it and how to do it, it's even more frustrating.
Yes, sir. And we attended those funerals of those police officers who lost their lives.
Too many.
Yes, sir.
Too many. Peter, do you know, you probably do know this, since 2018, something like 29 police murderers have been released in New York.
Yeah.
From prison.
Well, they
because of a bill passed by Cuomo. Mm-hmm. And these people, talk about changing it, but they can't because the legislature, is probably left to the Soviet Union.
Yeah, and the New York City Council. 29 police murderers walking the streets of New York? I mean, this is insane. Yes, times have changed. And New York City Council is about as far left as you can go. And look, I'm not a huge fan of the current mayor in New York City or his predecessor. But I mean, look, you got to admit, they have challenges with that city council as well. It's very difficult.
I don't know. I used to think that the city council that I had was crazy. Now they would look like Ronald Reagan. And of course, Peter Vallone was a gem.
Oh, yeah.
He's a great patriot.
Yes, sir.
So I want to have you back. I want you to talk about Lawfare because you experienced it. With Operation Fast and Furious, and you're getting to the bottom of it, and they really did a job on you. So I really want to like to show that this Lawfare thing is a lot broader than just what we think. The Trump people, me, and whatever. Yes, this is a thing that's become part of our government now, and we got to get rid of it.
Absolutely. And I'd be honored to join you again and discuss it.
Well, thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
God bless you. And thank you for your unbelievable contribution to our country.
Thank you, sir. And Merry Christmas to you and your listeners as well.
Thank you.
God
Merry
bless.
Christmas. Yes, to you and family.
Bye.
Now you can see what a real law enforcement guy is like, right? I mean, we got these Democrat dodos running around, the city, like in Colorado, the city is really safe. Watch out for Trondier over there. There's one over there. Shoot. They're breaking down some buildings. I don't know if the quality went down or whatever, but we'll take a short break and we'll be right back. He was very good.
To celebrate the new year, we're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50% and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited time, your order ships
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory, or not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because they like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're gonna go into the roaster and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're gonna want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
We are back.
Welcome back to America's Mayor Live. I am very happy to report that the Trump approval rating is at 55%. And in some polls, at 59%. Those are the highest numbers he's had. And given the amount of money that's been spent and time and the free media, which is the most ever, on lying about him and destroying his reputation, and a whole campaign of trying to convince us he was Hitler, this is remarkable. If that hadn't happened, it'd probably be 90%. But remember, just 2 months ago, they're all calling him Hitler. Well, thank God, huh? So we talked about. I did express my sympathy to George Stephanopoulos for having to lose his temper and cry and stamp his feet but if I were George, though, I wouldn't stamp my feet too hard. He wears very expensive Gucci loafers, which I'm aware of because when he came to Ground Zero, he was wearing them. And my chief of staff, Tony Carbonetti, trying to make him look like a guy who could fit in, kicked a little dust on his little toes. But he is said to be outraged that he was held accountable for lying. I think he should apologize. Trump was not held liable for rape. You not only said it, George, you said it after your network told you you shouldn't do it. And then you went on another show, another, left-wing part of the Biden cabal, which makes all you guys look like you're part of Pravda rather than American democracy. I mean, I don't know how you get so far off and don't realize that the number of people that disrespect you now is way higher than the people who go along with your crap. I mean, maybe there was a time in which they bought all that bullshit, but I mean, you're just a functionary of a political party. We don't count on you to tell us the truth. And decreasing numbers of people are listening to you. CNN has gone down, and they were nowhere before, 52% since the election. I mean, since the election, they also, on their own, freed a terrorist by mistake. And that excellent journalist, Tapper, congratulated the 20-year journalist who did it and didn't realize she was releasing one of the major killers in the Middle East. Good work. I mean, that's typical of your reporting and the way you handle debates. And I mean, the American people, I predict that in 4 or 5 years, nobody's going to listen to you. I think that they're going to increasingly, as they're doing, because they have so many options with podcasts or live cast at our podcasts and back and forth, they'll go to the people they trust. They don't trust you. And it would be terrible for our republic if they did, because you're one-sided and you lie. CNN, not even the worst. MSNBC and NBC is worse. ABC is worse. CBS is no better. So we'll see. There's a law that has been passed, right, that requires TikTok to separate itself from China. And I think the date is somewhere in late January that it has to be accomplished. So TikTok has been probably expending millions in paying off the lobbyists and Washington lawyers, which makes me feel better that they threw me out of the Washington bar, to convince whoever they have to convince, and I think they're working on Donald Trump, that TikTok should be allowed to remain under Red Chinese control, in which all information is available to our enemy, the Red Chinese and the Xi Jinping, that they collect. And this basically banning of them, I don't think is really based on their content, where they are held responsible for a lot of children committing suicide and becoming depressed, and they apparently go much further than a lot of the other, which go pretty far themselves. I can't evaluate that. I don't watch it often enough, and I've read the reports and they confuse me. I get the social media is confused a little, but I'm not confused about, and I'm not in love with any of them, including the ones I'm on sometimes, except, the conservative ones. I can trust them, like Getter and Rumble, and of course, Frank Speech, which I'm on, and X now under Elon. And I hope I didn't miss one, did I? Well, I've been thrown off YouTube so many times. I never know when they're going to throw me off. They threw me off when I was had a million people.
Well, don't argue with the ministers of truth there.
Yeah. I mean, so YouTube, I'm on YouTube, but I wouldn't throw it as far as I could see. But still, even the ones I don't agree with, like YouTube and some of the others, even that new Democrat one, blue shirt, blue slip, blue lying, I don't know, whatever the name of it is.
Blue Sky, the wannabe Twitter that no one cares about at all.
They have a 1/10 of 1% of X.
It's about what, like 100 liberal reporters talking to each other on there?
Yeah, I think they do better than CNN.
Oh, okay.
I hear that CNN, the anchors and reporters' parents don't even watch it.
Yeah.
I mean, most places you can at least get your parents to watch, but they're so offensive that the parents Maybe they'll watch their kid, but they won't watch anybody else. But in any event, TikTok is different than the social media I agree with, disagree with, or am neutral about. None of them, as far as I know, are owned by a avowed enemy of the United States that also is a party that has killed more of its own people than any group on earth. The Red Chinese have eliminated during their existence 100 million of their people. They are engaged in genocides we know about and genocides we don't know about. They have vowed to overtake us by 2048. The last time we ignored something like that, we got attacked. They do horrible things to their own people to suppress them. And they do horrible things to the people around them in trying to expand their empire. And they're constantly threatening the peace and security of Taiwan and threatening us, carrying out military exercises, making threats. They're also building up their military to challenge us. They have a larger Navy than we do. That's our fault. Now, hopefully that's going to be rectified by a great American president who cares about America, not, the kind of cowards and who knows with the money that China gave Biden. I don't know. Was he a traitor? Giving up the Guam Air Base? Or was he just, was he insane way back then? Maybe. In any event, President Trump, who I agree with on almost everything, but not everything, I think is wrong in saying that we should reconsider the TikTok banning, which he was the leader of, because he has a warm spot for them. I get rid of that warm spot really quickly because they report directly to the Red Chinese government and they give up personal data on all of us, you, me, him, and they're part of the war machine against us. Except in this case, it's an information war machine. And it's brainwashing the American people, which they have done a great job of. They've taken control of our school system. They have made our children, both in coming out of grammar school, high school, and particularly universities, freaking little Marxists. That's China mostly. Their infiltration of our country was much more subtle and much more complete than Russia. And when you look at the last 4 years, it's been like a holiday for them. At least, we would catch a couple of them coming in. We just let the doors open. We don't check anybody. And believe it or not, we check the Chinese least of all. They're only asked 4 questions when we find them. Half of them we never get to see. Some of them are escorted in by Biden. And a lot of them are escorted in by the cartels, the Mexican cartels that they've been working with for over 20 years, killing our kids with fentanyl. And TikTok reports directly to them. Every bit of material that TikTok has is available to Xi Jinping. Of course, they should be thrown out of the United States, not based on First Amendment or content or, look, I told you, there are a bunch of social media platforms that I think are wrong and dishonest. And I think they plotted against me and Trump and others. And I think they persecute the right wing. Believe it or not, in a country that wants to respect free speech, you got to be willing to accept that and fight against it with stronger and better speech. That's what we used to be like. What I just repeated to you is what every good liberal would say when I was growing up. And I turned from a liberal to a conservative for other reasons. I always thought, boy, we were allies on free speech. We're not anymore. I respect their right to speak. They don't respect my right to speak. They're trying to destroy me for speaking. They're trying to get an injunction out, not allowing me to speak about being a resident of Florida. I mean, it's a fact. So maybe I can't speak, but I can show you the cards. I mean, it's ridiculous. They took me off. YouTube did when I talked about the election. Now, it's going to turn out that I was right about the election, but I had a right to be wrong. In America, you actually even have a right to lie, except in very narrow circumstances where you defraud someone, and then somebody's got to get hurt, which is why the case against Trump should be reversed for, among other things, violating the First Amendment. And every one of those cases, like the one from Fanny the Hoe, who's just been thrown out of the case, should be thrown out. That was free speech. He had a right to say, because he believed that he was defrauded in the last election. I believe that. I believe I can prove it. I can be wrong. I can be right. And as time goes on, more and more evidence comes out that I was right. Like the missing ballots in Georgia. I think Georgia is a closed case at this point in terms of having cheated in 2020. But TikTok is a different situation. If they wanted to remove TikTok based on the allegations that TikTok has dangerous or bad content, I'd be very worried about that. Maybe there's a point beyond which you can go where you should be banned for that. But you got to be really careful about that. And it better not be, it's really bad because you disagree with it, as opposed to it's intrinsically bad, like, encouraging people to kill or something. But it isn't. It's about the flow of information. It's about spying. Now, we need any proof? China has their own police stations in America. One of the guys running the one in New York was sentenced yesterday. I'm not making this up. You want to see a picture of the police station in downtown in China? That's it right there. Can we put that on? That's the police station. That's the Chinese police station in New York. I don't know if they've gotten rid of the police stations. I was told that Beijing Tim or Tampon Tim hasn't gotten rid of the one in Minnesota or Minneapolis. It would stand to reason. He was working for them for 30 years, going and making lectures at their schools and bringing over our kids to get brainwashed. And nobody wants to say that, but that's what he was doing. How the hell does he go to China 30 times? But that's what they do. And so this police station existed for the purpose of sort of spying on, forget about it, guys. Forget about it. Okay, it's just distracting. So I would say, I don't know how much proof you need that China is an enemy. So, among other reasons to throw out that 1,500-page monstrosity is the party that favors China, the Democrat Party, will give them all sorts of aid and money. What the hell are we giving money to China for? Why do we give money to Iran if we're loyal Americans? And don't ask me to vote for it. Screw you. I'm not voting for it. Any Republican that votes for it, Trump is absolutely right. Why the hell would we want him in our party? Money to China? They have police stations there? You got to be kidding me. The guy that was who pled guilty was Chen Jinping. He's 60. He admitted in Brooklyn federal court to conspiring. And when it came time to name the country that he conspired for, he wouldn't say it. He wouldn't say China because he was scared out of his mind. And he eventually was forced to say it. Now he's only gonna get like a 5-year prison sentence because they got him for violating the Foreign Agents Registration Act. Now his co-defendant, whose name was Harry Liu Zhan Wang, who was arrested in April of 2023, and he was actually in charge of the since closed operation. He is alleged to have helped Chinese security officials actually locate dissidents in the United States so they could take revenge against them. And basically what these police stations do, and I don't know how many of them have been done away with, how many are still there. I know that some are still there in blue states that favored China. Let's face it. How about all the farmland they let them take in China? They let them take and put it in red Chinese hands, even next to air bases. And we're crazy, or we're disloyal, or we get paid off. I mean, I don't know what it is, but it should stop immediately. And that's why TikTok should be kicked the hell out of here. Now, somebody did suggest a solution, which is a straight, complete, honest, and scrutinized, trust but verify, purchased by a legitimate American company, and get China out. And then give us 2 years of monitoring to make sure that they're not sending stuff to China through the back door. I don't trust anybody where it comes to China because they get to our corporate officials. They play on their greed because the big market, really crazy, really, really crazy. If you think the Chinese market is better than the American market, 1/3 of China is in fifth world poverty. If America ever went under, China would go under first. Their unbelievable fear of China and the Chinese economy and their lust for being part of the Chinese economy, despite the atrocities of the Red Chinese government, just aids in the Red Chinese enslaving the Chinese people. Again, there's no group in the world that's killed more people, and their own people, mostly, than the Red Chinese. More than Russia, more than Hitler, more than anyone. And think about this. Xi Jinping is at the tail end of it, but they're still killing people like crazy. So I don't know what percentage of that 100 million he's done, 10 maybe? But when he went to San Francisco, the Democrat Party that now exists, meaning Harris and pretty boy in California, and all of the Pelosi, insider trading Pelosi, they gave him a gigantic parade. Go look at that sometime with the Chinese people waving Chinese flags, red Chinese flags. Now, those Chinese people are cheering for the guy who's killed more of their own people than anybody on earth. There's nobody on earth that's killed more Chinese than Xi Jinping. And they're rooting for him like he's a hero. And the crooked, disgusting, horrible Democrat politicians of San Francisco are welcoming him like it's Caesar returning from the conquest of Gaul. And you vote for them? Boy, they need to be thoroughly changed. I am a big supporter of a two-party system. I'm not advocating for just the Republican Party because you make it too long and we'll get as bad as they are if that happens. But right now, it's got to be two parties where the leadership of both parties are both working for the same country. They're not working for us. Many of them on purpose, some of them because they're cowards. They refuse to speak up against any Democrat no matter how outrageous they are. Look at the squad. Even the Jewish members are afraid of them. I'd be damned if I'd be afraid of them. I mean, our party has more arguing and more, and sometimes I think we're probably too much on the other side. But they are loyal. I mean, how about covering up how demented Biden was? That's got to be a crime. I think it is. So we've got Chinese police stations. We've got TikTok sending all of our information to the Xi Jinping. We've got parades for him as if he's a conquering hero. And then we have a group called TP Link. I bet you didn't know this. TP Link is the number one, by far, 65% market share in the United States, provider of internet routers to the home. And they are another red Chinese-owned company. They are, whoever they is, the Department of Commerce, Defense, and Justice. All have investigations of them. Of course, they're not going to come to any conclusion under a president purchased by the red Chinese. I mean, he'd have to give some of the money back. But if you would look at the board, I don't know, we have too much wrong light on that board, Ted?
The camera just wasn't working.
Well, but you try that, but let me talk while you're doing it. So the basic point is that TP Link, which is a wholly owned and completely red Chinese company, provides, has a 65% market share. It's the biggest provider of internet routers in the country. As I said, Commerce, Defense, and Justice are investigating. Yeah, how about acting? Like, pick them out. What do you mean, our routers? I don't know, maybe mine. 60% of the market share in America of routers is controlled by the red Chinese. Now, forget TP Link. Their companies are subsidiaries of the vicious, maniacal, homicidal red Chinese party. TP Link is the top choice of Amazon. Of course. Silicon Valley really is in need of a complete mind alteration on China. And how about getting loyal to the United States? Forget about the big market in China. Go, you keep doing it, we'll cut you out of the big market in the United States. Now, it can get you even more frightened. I know you're frightened about the drones. I'm confused about the drones. I don't let myself get frightened. I spent my whole life frightened. I let myself get frightened. TP Link also. You're not going to believe this. I don't believe it. TP Link supplies the routers to the Defense Department. The red Chinese supply the routers to Austin. I think Pete Hegseth will change that in a second, which is another reason to confirm them, boys and girls. Let me not just sing out the Defense Department. They also supply the routers to the Drug Enforcement Administration so they can keep tabs on the investigations of fentanyl, so they can keep up their multi-billion-dollar business in fentanyl, which has gotten to be ridiculously out of control under Biden, which of course would be ridiculous out of control if you can bring things in unmolested, unapproached. You think the fentanyl is brought in at the borders and they report? No, it's brought in at the gaps between the various border stations, which are wide and large, with a gigantic, very well-financed, very sophisticated cartel that controls the border. And by the way, their biggest ally almost from the beginning has been Red China because of fentanyl. They've been doing fentanyl for 20 years. It became ridiculous, out of control, a substance for murdering American kids under Biden, Harris, and the complete, absolutely disgusting human being, Mayorkas. So maybe one of the first things Donald Trump can do is let him kick TikTok out, unless they are honestly acquired by an American company, and we get a chance to examine that from the inside for a couple of years. And TP-Link gone. Let's immediately start making our own routers. Let's replace them over a period of time. Let's make them illegal and get them the hell out of here. What are we, absolute suckers? TP-Link. Did they see the chart, or was it impossible to put on?
And we can turn it on again.
I can show them here too. That's the chart. That shows you how it's grown.
Now we're on. We got it on there.
That shows you how it's grown under the guy that the Chinese paid for, Joe Biden. So it was at, when Joe Biden came in, it was at about 38% market share. And now it's at 64% market share. China's getting its money worth. And, oh, by the way, all these agencies are investigating. That's like they're investigating the attempted assassinations of Trump. Yeah. That one of the first one is the only guy in America that doesn't have a social network profile of any kind. I don't know what China has to do to convince us to really make it impossible for them to do what they're doing, and we can't. They're not at all the power they pretend to be. They have major, major issues that can take them down if you exploit them. And they have enemies, long-term enemies, ancient enemies that could be utilized to frighten the shit out of them. And I think they'd come around with a Trump approach. I do. Look how confused they were that he invited them to the inauguration. They had to take like 3 days to think about it and argue about it and what's he up to and what does he have in mind and what's he doing. But that gets us back to who the hell is doing the drones. So now we see that at least 17 military bases adjacent to Chinese-owned farmland have experienced a rash of drone sighting in recent weeks. I said 17 military bases that approximate to Chinese-owned farmland in the United States. How much farmland do we own in China? What do you think?
Probably. I'm going to go ahead and say that they restrict us on that, probably. I don't know. They might have some good ideas over there.
Restriction on that. But you can only own less than 50% of any Chinese company.
Yeah, they require it, right? You have to partner with it.
But let's get what it. I know anybody that went to an Ivy League school, don't bother to try to understand this because you haven't been educated. But if you haven't gone to an Ivy League school, you'll understand this. It's a communist government. They own everything. The children, like in Minnesota, are the property of the state. Now, why did I say Minnesota? Because a 13-year-old can have their penis chopped off without the permission of their parent in Minnesota because the state knows better. And I believe from the beginning, when I researched it, that there's something very, very suspicious about Tampon Tim and his connections to China. 30 visits, teaching there. You don't get to teach what you want to teach, Tampon Tim. And maybe that's why you say absolutely ridiculous things, like one man's socialism is another man's neighborliness, or China's a wonderful place, or your best vacation was in China. Jesus was one of the worst places I ever went. They even basically kicked me out when I told them my views on Taiwan. You got to be sucking up to them, Tim, all those years. And nobody even paid attention to this. It was probably the biggest issue with regard to you. I mean, you're a major left-wing jackass, and you're running the state into the ground, and you basically got Minneapolis burned to the ground. Those are big issues. But your profile raises a very serious question about your loyalty to the United States of America. You get trained in China as a college kid, sponsored by Harvard. They invite you back 30 times. Are they paying you? We don't know. Do they pay for the trip? Sounds that way. You had 2 companies exploiting sending people to China. Who gave you the money for those companies? Anybody look? No, that's because when they made you vice president, you went in that privileged group of criminals. You can do anything you want. Nobody looks at you, like the Bidens. So now, in addition to New Jersey, we've got this report that 17 military bases adjacent to Chinese-owned farmland have experienced sightings of drones in recent weeks. Now, I don't know what that means. I don't know how accurate it is. I just know that's what it says. And I do know that a ridiculously disproportionate number of drones have been flying over New Jersey where there are sensitive military installations, including ones that works on defense against drones. And the answer of the president and the lying admiral, whose title should be taken away from him for telling lies that affect and put in jeopardy the national security of his country. What do you mean there are regular flights like that all the time of drones? There are 1,000 drones flying over all of America. As I said, I haven't seen one here in Florida. Well, my friends in Texas haven't seen any. How come they're all flying over New Jersey? You people are outrageous. And it's because you're not held to account. It's because, as a Republican, I learned that the press is going to criticize everything I say. And if there's any way to make it wrong, or any way to suggest that I did something wrong, or any inference they want to pick up, or any lie that is told to them by a complete liar, they'll print it. The mere fact that on every single situation involved here, I've been proved to be telling the truth, and they've been proved to be liars, doesn't change anything. They'll go ahead and propagate another lie against me. And as to them, they can sell out the damn country. Got to change. Got to be equal for both of us. Number one, so that we can have justice again. We don't have it now. And number two, so we can be protected and safe. And I think one of the reasons why people don't trust what these people are saying, because they lied to us before about the balloon. They lied for 5-6 days about the balloon, maybe more. First, there wasn't one. Then it was just a balloon. Then it was a balloon, but no threat. They weren't get to see anything they didn't have anyway. Then it was a balloon that had very unsophisticated equipment. And then by the time it was shot down, after it took all the pictures it wanted, escorted by the United States Air Force, thanks to Joe Biden, it turned out to be an enormously sophisticated intelligence device that took very, very intricate pictures of highly sensitive military facilities. I don't know. That along with giving up Bagram doesn't convince you that Joe sold out to the Red Chinese? What do I have? What do I have to do? Push your head in it? Push your face in it? You got to be stupid not to at least want that investigated for the good of your country. And how many people like Biden are left behind? I mean, he wasn't thinking anymore. Somebody else made most of the irrational decisions, which means it goes a lot deeper than Biden. And they're around to come back, and they're around to create all kinds of problems, not necessarily for Trump, but for the country. What I don't want this to sound like I want to destroy the Democrat. Well, I do. I think the Democrat Party should go away. Too much connection with slavery anyway. They cannot honestly argue that Thomas Jefferson's statue should be removed from the New York City Council, but they should continue to call themselves Democrats. Or we should change the name of the Washington Redskins. But they should keep the name Democrat. There's no institution that I can think of in the history of our country that did more for slavery than the Democrat Party. It's the only political party that I can think of that carried on a civil war over it. They got 600,000 Americans killed. 300,000 on either side. Because they wanted to split from the Union. And as South Carolina said, number one, to preserve slavery. They had other reasons, but number one, Nikki Haley seemed to get confused about that, for which I lost all respect for her. I can pick them out. I've been picking out criminals and liars and perjurers since I was a kid. And politicians are disproportionately fit in that category, tragically. And now it's gotten worse in the Democratic Party. It could happen. It could happen. As I said, if it becomes a one-party system, it'll happen to us. That's why I'd like to see the Democrat Party throw out the bums, change the name, and start a new left-of-center party. I didn't agree with the Democrat Party in the 60s and the 70s. I did in the 60s. I left in the 70s because I disagreed with them. I respected them. Some of my best friends were Democrat. When I was mayor, I worked with them very closely, including Bill Clinton. I didn't work with the present Democrat Party. Not with the leadership it has. I'm sure it's got a lot of really great members, but they're cowards. They won't stand up to their leaders. Somebody's got to come along and say, kick the squad out. Kick them out. I mean, some of them are poor excuses for Americans. They're attacking us all the time. They're attacking our best friend, Israel. They're anti-Jewish. They're haters. I don't think AOC is a hater. I think she's a nitwit. Complete nitwit. It was good to see that Pelosi used her undercover techniques to screw it. Now, I don't know if that's an act of patriotism or an act of, she wants to continue to ward off that bill that would stop her from making money from insider trading. I mean, they have abused that more than anybody on earth. No one has come close to them in doing that. So tomorrow night, we are going to have what, Stephen?
We are having a Christmas spectacular.
We are. I have no idea what that's going to involve, but it'll be really, really fun. And everyone will enjoy it. And we'll do crazy things, but we'll also give you serious news and the things you need to know, like we do here every night. That's our purpose. As they say in sophisticated circles, our raison d'etre. It is to see, we put it all down here, what you're not going to get elsewhere. Like, nobody wanted to tell you that in that ridiculous monstrosity of a bill that, thank God, Trump, Vance, Elon, and Vivek got rid of, they voted themselves a pay raise, or they voted the continuation of a massive censorship group that cuts off significant amounts of revenue for conservative or kind of middle of the road conservative networks. I wanted to continue it, even though they had promised. They snuck it in. See, the bill is this big, and as Pelosi told you, nobody reads it. So they stuck that in there, the funding for that. They thought we wouldn't see. They wouldn't see that, or the money for China. We're going to vote for money for China. All those phony Democrats telling you that it was terrible what the are proposing. They might not even know it. They're proposing a bill. They're also giving themselves raises. Hakeem Jeffries, you forgot to tell people when you condemn Republicans, you want a raise. You know something, Hakeem? You don't deserve one. It'd be an injustice for you to get a raise. You don't do anything except bullshit and say stuff that hurts the country. You're one of the people that was suggesting that Trump was Hitler. You gonna get a raise for that? Are you kidding me? You guys want a raise? Do something. Do we pay for performance? What the hell are we, a really communist country? I mean, you keep that quiet, right? Shh. Don't tell anybody we got a raise stuck in those 1,500 pages and money for China and money for censorship. Yeah. A lot of other shit, too. A lot of payoffs. Big money for homeless contracts in which they kick all the money around. You see how much money the people are getting in New York for homeless contracts? Like 2-3 times what they should be getting? Why do you think that happens? I'll let you think about it overnight. Democrats do that. I don't know, maybe some Republicans do it, but not systemically. Change the name of the party. Everybody get together that has middle of the road to left-wing positions, all loyal to the U.S. We need a control and check on the Republican Party. Not good for us if we don't. It'd be okay for a few years, but then it. Well, we'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back at 7 on Frank Speech Network. Always on X at 7 and 8 with the long-running America's Mayor Live. What episode is this, Ted?
Tonight is 564.
You heard it, 564. And we're going to take just a second now to pray for the people who are in jeopardy. We always mention Ukraine and Israel and Iran, but there are people all over the world. And we're getting close to Christmas. And this is a time where I think it may be a better chance your prayers get answered if you recognize the birth of God's Son and what Jesus did for the world. Even if you're not a believer, you got to recognize what Jesus did for the world. He didn't convert a good portion of the world by conquest. He did it by preaching. Well, we live in the greatest country on earth because we're able to speak. And let's preserve that. Let's get it back. More of it's been taken away than ever before in our history, and we don't want to be the generation that loses it, right? Because we'll lose America if we lose that. So I want to thank Elon Musk in particular, who's taken a certain amount of heat right now, because, boy, he stepped up. I mean, the social media was completely controlled by them. Talk about monopoly. And, boy, he's cracked it wide open. God bless him. God bless all of you. Get ready for the birth of Jesus and for Hanukkah, which is coming up. And let's bring God back to America. We need God really badly. It anchors an ethical system. Even for people, even if you don't believe in God, you should encourage God coming back to America because you needed to anchor an ethical system. God bless America.
I'm a puppet here. Have a holly jolly Christmas. And when you walk down the street, say hello to friends you know and everyone you meet. Oh, the mistletoe hung where you can see. Somebody waits for you. Kiss her, one for me. Really jolly Christmas. And in case you didn't hear, oh, by golly, have a holly jolly Christmas this year. It's the best time of year. Have a holly jolly Christmas. And when you walk down the street, say hello to friends you know and everyone you meet. Oh, the mistletoe hung where you see. Somebody waits for you. Yes, sir, one for me. A holly jolly Christmas. And in case you didn't hear, oh, by golly, have a holly jolly Christmas this year.
It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given common sense.